You're watching your local news leader. This is WCIA 3 News at 10.
Good evening, I'm Jessica Coons. You're looking right now at body and dash camera footage from an officer-involved shooting in Decatur. It was released today. A traffic stop turned into a shootout and left 2 officers hurt and the suspect dead. WCIA 3's Renee Cooper reports.
Police Chief Shane Brandell says officers learned from an informant that 32-year-old Jamonte Neal was in possession of a gun. Chief Brandell wouldn't go into any more detail about why they stopped Neal. He says that's to protect the informant's safety. Now, we do know that Neal would not have been allowed to have a firearm because of a prior felony conviction, and we now have a clearer picture of what happened once they pulled him over. We're going to show some of this video to walk through what unfolded, but leaving out most of the graphic moments. But what we're about to air still may be disturbing, especially to our youngest viewers.
58 is going to have a 38 Woodford and Walnut.
About midnight on October 12th, Decatur police officers Austin Bowman and Ryan Ricker pull up directly behind a car driven by Jamonte Neal. Directly behind their squad car is another one, driven by Sergeant Timothy Whitmer. 2 officers first approached the car. Officer Bowman on the driver's side and Officer Ricker on the passenger side.
Okay, show me your hands. Show me your hands. Show me your hands. Step out of the car.
Within 10 seconds of approaching the car, Ricker spots a gun.
It's under his ass.
Sergeant Timothy Whitmer walks up as the other officers begin trying to physically remove Neal from the car.
Do not reach for it.
Stop. Step back. Put your hands up right now. Grab the roof right now. Grab the roof right now. I'm going to end up shooting you. I'm not moving.
Whitmer grabs Neal's left arm, and within the next few seconds, Neal grabs a second gun with his right arm and fires first. Deputy Travis Wolf pulled up just as the shooting started. Police say all 4 officers returned fire. Whitmer falls to the ground as officers fire back. We're going to freeze the video here as Neal gets out of the car. You hear more than 20 shots. Officer Whitmer continues to fire from the ground until he's out of rounds. Neal lands between Whitmer and the car, his gun on the ground next to him, facing Sergeant Whitmer.
Sergeant Whitmer was in the worst possible position in this incident. He'd been hit multiple times by gunfire. He had went down to the ground and his vision was impaired.
Chief Shane Brandell says Sergeant Whitmer was hit 3 times, first in the hand. Chief Brandell says that was the most significant injury requiring surgery. It also caused his gun to malfunction, which he had to clear before being able to fire back.
He was completely exposed to the person that was trying to kill him.
Officer down. Officer hit. Officer down. I'm hit, Travis. Where you at?
When you're in a battle for your life, you got to do what you have to do to survive.
Chief Brandell says they believe that same bullet was fragmented when it went through Sergeant Whitmer's hand, and those fragments resulted in a shoulder and head injury as well. He was hit by 3 rounds in total. A titanium wallet in his pocket actually blocked one of them. Now, Officer Bowman was hit once in the left abdomen. The chief says they're both doing well. For those who'd like to watch the videos in full, we have a link to them over on our website at WCIA.com. Back to you.
Other news tonight, Champaign County Crime Stoppers needs your help solving a deadly shooting. This happened October 4th on 3rd Street near Bradley Avenue in Champaign. One of the victims, 25-year-old Rashad Weatherall, was shot several times and died at the hospital. 2 other people were also hurt. Police say they were standing in an apartment complex parking lot when someone drove up and opened fire. You can report anything you know anonymously to Crime Stoppers. Point your cell phone camera at that code right now, and it'll take you to the Crime Stoppers website. New for you tonight, Georgetown's police chief says he was terminated, but he doesn't know why. Eric Kaiser says the mayor sat him down on October 14th and said he was being let go. He says he was not given a reason, leaving him confused and frustrated. He's now hired a lawyer. We have reached out to Georgetown's mayor, but have not heard back. The Charleston School District is getting its first ever school resource officer. City council members voted unanimously on adding a police presence. Before this decision, the district had a liaison officer who worked out of the police station. The deputy chief says an in-school officer will add a sense of security and will also strengthen the relationship between students and law enforcement.
Cities are having issues with the Uvalde and other types of active shooter incidents, and we want to just make sure we're prepared to handle it. And we're also want to make sure we're prepared to build those relationships with our students, to build that trust so they can trust us in the schools where we're not popping in there and their first reaction is what is wrong.
That SRO will start in the high school and visit other schools on an as-needed basis. Right now, there's only one of them, but they do hope to add more in the future. 1 year ago today, 25-year-old Liam Gasser's life changed. He was shot in the head in what Champaign police called an act of road rage. This happened in the middle of the day on busy Prospect Avenue, and police are still searching for the person responsible. Several months after it, Mike Namoff organized a benefit for Gasser and became close friends with his family. He's asking people not to forget Gasser or what happened that day.
This one hit our community so hard that people stop me and say, "Hey, how's Liam?" And the answer is still on the road, still on the long road to recovery.
Ever since that fundraiser, he says contractors have reached out to help make Gasser's home accessible. The shooting gave him a traumatic brain and spinal injury, and he is still working to recover. Small-town businesses were hit hard during the pandemic and are hurting even more with inflation. Because of that and a rise in operating costs, the only restaurant in Piper City may have to close down. WCIA 3's Marley Capper was there today. Marley, their bills have skyrocketed.
That's right. Last summer, ISAs paid around $500 a month for electricity. This summer, their bill was over $1,400 a month. One of them hit $2,000.
I have breakdowns every other day, probably.
Randy Spees is the owner of ISAs, the only restaurant in Piper City.
Because this is so much more. It's part of our lives here in these small towns.
And it's the only place the community has to gather.
It was about $7,000 a month, and now it's up to about $11,000 a month.
She's talking about the operational costs to run her restaurant back in 2016 versus what it costs now in 2022.
Insurance, food costs, alcohol costs, utilities.
Her electricity bill, which was once under $500, has tripled.
In June this year, it was $2,150.
Each month, she wonders if she'll be able to stay in business.
It's extremely hard. Everything's gone up so much that we can't afford it. Nobody's going to pay $15 for a hamburger in a small town.
She's not the only one struggling.
I could take you in almost any small town in my district. This is going on everywhere.
Tim Nuss, a Ford County board member, says he's trying everything he can to help. He's even reached out to Representative Tom Bennett.
He's looking for programs, grants, or anything else we can get.
I reached out to Ameren. Their director of communications, Tucker Kennedy, says the price of energy has spiked and the cost has been passed on to customers.
We just don't have right now enough energy to meet the demand on our grid. That's what caused wholesale energy prices to increase dramatically.
Kennedy says they can't control the prices. They just deliver the energy, not generate it.
We understand what's happening, and we are frustrated by it as well as our customers are.
And while he couldn't talk specifically about Spees' restaurant, Kennedy says Ameren wants to help its customers.
We want to work with any of our customers that are having difficulties or facing challenges paying their energy bills because of this dramatic increase that we've seen in power supply prices.
Spees says they've tried everything to help, including closing hours early and turning off the AC. They did reach out to Ameren and hasn't had any luck. Now, Ameren's financial assistance is on our website over there. You can take a look. Jess.
All right, Marley, thank you so much. Ameren says energy costs are now at an all-time high. Some issues are inflation, an increase in demand, and conflict in Eastern Europe. They also say we're transitioning away from fossil fuel without enough renewable energy to make up the difference. We are learning new details about the federal money that helped Illinois child care centers survive the pandemic. The state's child care stabilization program got almost $800 million from the American Rescue Plan. The White House says it helped more than 7,000 programs. Child care centers have used the money to pay employees and to stay open throughout the pandemic. That was especially important for one facility in Chicago, which shut down for 3 months.
The rescue funds allowed us to be able to provide a safe environment for the children that we care for.
In Champaign County, the money went to 193 child care centers. In Macon County, 40 facilities got money, and in Sangamon County, 116 benefited. Overall, the money has impacted more than 320,000 children throughout the state. From your local election headquarters now, almost a dozen early voting sites are now open in Champaign County. Rules vary by site, but people can register to vote or update their registration at many of those locations. If you're interested in voting early, we have a link to all of the spots you can go on WCIA.com.